Good afternoon, everybody. Today it's my privilege to sit and have a discussion about men in business. My guest today is Emmanuel Mofokeng, and we've got Mr. Nadeem Isaacs. And I thought it's a good idea. This month, it's Father's Day is happening in this month. Now, not all men are fathers, but all fathers are men. So I thought it's a good idea to have this discussion about the role of men in business. Welcome, guys, and thank you for meeting with me today and having this session just to chat about things. And just to kick off, I thought it's an idea is to maybe just touch on the evolving leadership role that men have. Thinking back in the day when generally men would be the managers at the office, and very few women would be. But that has changed. And then also, what is there an evolving role for men as managers and in the workplace? Nadeem, what do you think?
Well, I find that it's still the same expectation in terms of men being the providers for family and having to take on the managerial role to be the high income earners, in within the family. I do.
Does that put pressure on you as a father, as a manager, to that additional burden then as well? Not only you have to provide that comfort and support at work, but then the expectation is at home as well. So there is that continuing expectation there.
Yes.
And on your side, Emmanuel, do you agree with that? Do you think there is that continued expectation as a man in business that you have to provide and be the strong person?
My answer is yes, because that's how I was raised as well. My father was a provider. My grandfather was a provider. My great-grandfather was a provider. And all the women would be at home at the time doing their duties at home. Back then, compared to now, everybody has a right to go out to the market to do whatever they want to do, to go out to the businesses to do some work. If everybody want to work, they have a right to work now. It's unlike compared to the previous years whereby only men were like it was like a must that a man must provide. Actually, it's not like, but it was like that because our fathers, that's how they raised us, and that's how we got to where we are. But we look at things differently now, in a sense that for today, for modern women, they are allowed to work. They are allowed to follow their dreams. They are allowed to do whatever they wish to do with their lives.
Yes, thank you. Gentlemen, so I'd urge you just to read a magazine called CEO Magazine, and there's an article in December 2025, and it says there, the masculinity problem in leadership, what real strength means. Now, it goes on to say the following: toughness alone is not enough, and leadership is not always knowing the plan, but listening, collaborating, and understanding what people really need. I think that's very, it covers all bases. Now, as men in the business, you have to collaborate, you have to work together. It's not a dictatorship. Maybe 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, it was a dictator, whatever the boss says, that goes. Now it's a collaboration. You work together in different roles, with different departments, different people within your department, with different managers, with different role players. So collaboration is very important. And then also listening. Previously you not really listened to what your colleagues have to say. Unfortunately, that's what our things were. And then also understanding, there are different backgrounds, people come from different cultures. Now you have to understand where they're coming from and have empathy and sympathy, which again, being honest, that wasn't in the workplace a couple of decades ago. Is this article hitting the nail on the head?
I think so. I think it definitely is hitting the nail on the head. But like Emmanuel touched on in terms of the change in the workplace, that men are expected to collaborate more. We are expected to liaise with our colleagues, and not only men in the workplace, women as well. Leadership role not only taken up by men but by women as well. And I think that is a positive direction that we're moving in. But the expectation back at home is always that men, especially from our cultural backgrounds, although definitely are raised similarly, that men are the providers, men are the leaders, and our families look up to us to be that.
Yes. But Emmanuel, things are changing. Like you touched on earlier, that was the expectation on your great-grandfather, your grandfather, and so on. Whereas now, things do change, but this discussion is about our roles as men in business, and also, the evolving nature of business, and our role as men within that evolving workplace. So, Gent, from our perspective as well, I often feel that getting home, you simply just want to put your feet up and relax, but you still, in my role, still a dad, and still a husband, and then you still have your role to play at home as well. So men in the workplace or men in business, that's a portion, of what our roles are. But within our role at home and within our communities, the idea with Whitfields is that we want to impact our communities as well. And in the greater South Africa, that's what we really want to make an impact on. And I really think that us as men in the workplace, in business, and our role in South Africa, we have so much to offer, and I think we'll continue in those roles and continue to evolve and work together with other players.
Yeah, no, that's true. And when you mentioned a very good point about collaboration, which is what is now taking us from one level to another. There's a saying that if you want to run quick, go alone. But if you want to do it right, then go together. Actually, maybe I can't remember the right word, but it's along those lines. So meaning that if you do something by yourself, you only have one opinion that you can work on. But if you working with other people, if you collaborate with other people, sit on the table, speak to other people about your idea or maybe whatever you are planning to do, then you will get more than one idea. Then at least you know that you have more than one chance to reach your objective. But if you're doing it alone, then it means you only have one option, you don't have other options. So it's always good to collaborate with other people and to get to know and understand other people and how they do things, how they feel about things. Then that's how I think we build this growing economy, and there are changes that we see as well in the work industries as well. With when you get home, you still have duties to do. Then in that me and my friends, we call it we just changing uniform. You're not off duty yet. You're just changing uniform from one uniform to another. So you're still on duty, and then until that last minute you lie on your bed. Only then you know that finally I'm free now to plan the next day and just relax for now. That's the life of a man who has kids and who have or let's call it a father. That's the life of a father versus the life of a man. And yeah, but if we collaborate and do it all together, it becomes
easier.
Yes.
And then listening, Nadeem, listening to your colleagues, listening to what other people have to say, not only at work, but, within the community as well. Do you think that that's something that's changed and certainly developed?
I think it has developed, and it touches on what you indicated earlier on in the workspace. We're more in the past, I think it was more dictatorship. Managerial levels was like it's like the man who's in charge is right, and what he says goes. And so being collaborative assists. What Emmanuel just touched on in terms of these analogy of where you have multiple opinions, help you achieve much greater things sooner. I could put it. If you all have a common goal, various ideas.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. But again, so everybody, thank you for your time. Just our roles as men in business, or men at home, it's a changing environment, it's a changing landscape. But I really do still believe that men have a very important place in society.